Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by Die Hard. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 99. Only one more to go till we get to the century mark. I am John Davis, and joining me today are our assistant producer, Greg Carlos.
Hey there.
Our writer, producer, two-wheeling reporter, Brian Robinson.
Hello.
And our writer, Patrick Lucas.
Hey, everybody.
And we do have our lightning round, and we'll be answering a viewer question later on. But first, here are the cars we're going to cover in this podcast. We're going to take a look at the 2015 BMW M3 and M4, the 2015 Chevrolet Camaro Z28, the 15 Alfa Romeo 4C, and the 15 BMW i8, the gull-wing sports car that everyone's talking about. And also a car that we're testing right now in the office, and we're going to start there, the 2014 Mini Cooper Hardtop. And let's go around the table. Now, for truth and disclosure here, I have a 2002 Mini Cooper Hardtop, very much outfitted like the car we had in for testing. And that is that it's an automatic, it's a standard Cooper, even has pretty much the same color. What do you guys think of the Mini? You've had exposure over the years to all the changes, but this is really the most new Mini since the 2002 one.
Yeah, it's gotten bigger, a little more functionality, but still remains what it's always been, a fun to drive, overpriced, cool-looking car.
Whoa. Well, you know what? I can't disagree with you on the last part. I mean, this particular one we have, which admittedly has got navigation and very, very nice sports seats in it, it's $33,000.
Yeah,
and
GTI
it's not an S.
territory.
Yeah, that's hard to stomach right there.
But what about driving?
That 3-cylinder engine was very impressive.
Let's talk about that a little bit because while we've seen 3 cylinders in a few other vehicles, this is a new engine. It's got twin balance shafts. It's obviously BMW developed. It's going to be used in other BMW engines. Were you surprised?
Well, it is. It's a new engine, but technically it is. It's just the i6 cut in half, really.
Correct.
Right? Yeah, but I'm really shocked by how well it performs. It actually sounds pretty decent, which I had some concerns about. And it actually shows up in the i8, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, really no problems with in this particular car. I mean, it really gets up and goes.
Yeah, it has a decent 0 to 60 of about 7 seconds. It doesn't have long legs, but around town it seemed fine. Brian?
Yeah, off the line, you wouldn't know it's a 3-cylinder. It feels plenty peppy. And like Greg said, it sounds cool. No complaints.
Did anybody notice, and I didn't notice this when I drove it at the launch, for the press launch, it has a little bit of a dieseling-like sound or aspect to it. A little different.
Yeah, I definitely caught that.
Yeah, all the direct injection stuff now seems to be going that way. They sound very diesel-like. What was your take on the moving the speedometer to behind the wheel off the center?
Well, I guess because I have a 2002, which was a closer copy to the old original Mini than I guess this one is, I sort of nostalgic don't like it. It makes it less unique on the interior. On the other hand, it now puts it in front of the driver, so you're actually going to see it, where you had to glance essentially away from straight ahead of you to see it before.
They still have the ginormous circle in the dash.
Right,
and
that's
now
still
it even
there.
has less of a purpose. Which,
well,
it
with
does.
the ambient lighting, it can be a giant tachometer now.
You mean the mood ring lighting around it?
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting. But I was surprised for. You said what was ours, 33, and that was probably top of the line.
Yeah,
surprisingly premium interior, very comfortable,
very nice.
Pleasant place to spend some time.
Didn't like the dark wood. I thought
that was a little gimmicky.
It looks like that's shelf paper, but the materials are nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they definitely stepped it up a notch there. But again, it's becoming a lot of the BMW parts and stuff. So it's,
you got an iDrive system.
Yeah, iDrive is like right out of BMW.
Yeah.
I will say it is. I've felt the most comfortable in this Mini than I have in previous Minis. One thing that I have a problem with, and I think
everybody should know that Greg's a tall guy.
Yeah. But back to the driving. I think everybody else had this problem. The transmission seems a little bit clunky, and just doesn't seem to want to act in the way that I want it to. It just seems like it takes a little bit too long. Now, actually, at the track, it actually did well. I mean, when it's pushed, it shifts quick, it shifts firm. But on the street, when you're going around a parking lot, it does seem
kind of lazy.
Yeah, awkward and lazy. I think everybody else around the table agrees, but if someone disagrees, then I'll gladly argue with you.
I'll put up with the awkwardness over the CVT that was in the original one.
Gosh, yes. I mean, it's probably one of the worst CVTs ever done. All right, so let's move on for the Mini. I think we generally, if we were giving a thumbs up or thumbs down, I think most of us would probably have a thumbs up. And here, the next car, we're going to stay with BMW. Actually, we were going to stay with BMW a lot on this particular podcast. Let's move on to the new M3 and M4. I'm sure most folks listening to the podcast know that the 3 Series and the 4 Series are basically separated now. The 4s are now coupes and the 3s are now sedans, and don't ask me why, but here we go. So what do you think of the 3s and 4s?
I just drove them out in Wisconsin the other day, and I got to say, I mean, after driving M5 and M6 in the last year or so, I was a little disappointed with those in the way that you couldn't really use the power. It seemed like it was way too quick for the traction control system. Yeah, it just seems like you
bogged you down every time you really got on it.
Exactly, but the M3, I think, pretty much gives you all the power, and it's actually accessible to pretty much any kind of driver. This is the new power plant, so it's down to the i6 twin turbo, 2 mono scroll turbos, but you're up in horsepower to 425, and torque's also up pretty significantly at 406. A lot of people were kind of, I guess, weary or unsure of whether or not that turbo lag was going to be a factor. But really, it's not. I mean, this thing, it has electronic wastegates. It has charge pressure control. So really, you're getting the boost almost immediately.
Has anybody really been complaining about turbo lag on a twin turbo engine? I mean, I can't remember having a twin turbo in the last, few years.
Occasionally it pops up, but I mean, they do so much with electronics and pre-spooling now. It's kind of a non-issue, but I don't know. It still pops up every once in a while.
Did you think that this M3 and M4, let's concentrate on the M3 because that's the one that most people can identify with.
On that point, I'll jump in.
I mean, because of the coupe.
Yeah, they've killed it for me. I mean, the
M3. I'm talking about the name-wise, but you're right. Go ahead and you explain
M3, that was the name. That was
a
the car, and it was a coupe. And then, maybe you can get a sedan in some years too. But now it's M3 is sedan only, and M4 is the coupe.
And you tell somebody M4, they say, what?
Yeah. What is that, a new model? No, it's an M3.
It's an M3 with
they don't make an M3?
Number on it.
Yeah, they've ruined it for me. Sorry.
Okay. With that said, Greg, since you drove it, we used to complain, I mean, we've always loved the M3s, but we would generally come away and say it's not a very civilized car. Is this a more civilized supercar?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we actually, unfortunately, it was raining the entire time, so I only got a little bit of track time out there. But I was on the road for most of it, and it's absolutely civilized. I mean, I could see where somebody getting into a car who may not be a car enthusiast gets into an M3 and goes, "Oh, this is bumpy, and I don't like this at all." But I think if you're getting an M3 and you know what you're getting yourself into, it's absolutely it's fine to deal with on the street. At least I think so. I can deal with a little bit of a stiff ride, but it definitely doesn't beat you up. And then, I mean, you can track it whenever you want to, and it'll just rip the track up.
How much have they differentiated the 3 from the 4 at all, or
just 2 less doors? Really, I mean,
that's a shame.
This whole splitting, even numbers for coupes and convertibles and odd for sedans. Just I know where they're going. They say they're going to make the 4 Series will be a full line of vehicles, but it just seems to me such proliferation for no real apparent gain. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's.
The other BMW we're going to talk about today, and I guess, Greg, we're going to stick with you for a minute, is the
Greg.
i8. It's going to be the Greg show today. He's had a good month today. Now, I personally am jealous because I haven't driven the i8. I've sat in it. I've looked at it. But what's it like? Is it really the electric sports car?
It's absolutely awesome. I was A little concerned when I got there. I'd heard all the hype about it, but I'm still thinking, it's a hybrid. It's still going to feel like a hybrid. I know that the supercars that just came out are hybrids, but those are $1 million cars. This is $135,000. But after about 10 minutes of driving it, it was really apparent that this could be the wave of the future. I mean, it's the 1. Like I said before, it's that same 3-cylinder in the back, but you also got the same electric motor that's in the i3. Mm-hmm. It's all-wheel drive. You can either get 100% torque to the front wheels or 100% to the back, depending on what mode you're in. There's eco. You can go completely silent in electric mode for like 20 miles, or you can just go straight to sport and just keep everything running and going through on Mulholland Drive. It was absolutely ridiculous, honestly. I mean, you get into the throttle coming out of a corner and you get instant torque and low center of gravity. I mean, that just equals fun.
Do you think that an advanced hybrid, plug-in hybrid with a engine backup makes more sense now that you've driven this supercar with it than, say, a pure electric? Do you think they're both going to have a place? I mean, you've driven everything. And that's a question I get constantly.
I think for the foreseeable future, this is the way to go because people still want to have that gasoline engine.
Flexibility.
Right. They just, people in this generation grew up with gasoline engine cars. And, maybe 50, 100 years down the road, I mean, that's way down the road, maybe electric engine, like people won't have that range anxiety. But for now, I think the plug-in hybrid is probably going to be the way to go for most people.
The electric motor's on the front wheels and the gas is in the back, right?
Correct. So
and
it's really a rear engine car.
And the electric motors never power the rear wheels and vice versa?
Correct. They only power the front wheels. That has a 2-speed transmission, and then the 3-cylinder in the back is a 6-speed. So it's not an 8-speed transmission. There's separate gears up front.
Slight question. Mainly for Greg.
A slight question.
Mainly for tall Greg.
Mainly for tall Greg, because he's the only one who's driven it, and this might be a strange
And the gull-wing doors.
But,
no, they're not gull-wing. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
What do you think?
They would call those like knife edge, I guess.
What do you think, like the i brand of BMW? You think that's
viable?
Yeah, exactly. So you've driven the i3 and the i8, and
I have.
You've impressed with both of them. Mm. So is the i brand for BMW?
Now the i3 seems lame. No, it's not. But after driving the i8, you're like.
But
it's a whole lot less money too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Ford. It starts at like $47,000. I mean, that's not a small chunk of change.
It's still you can buy two of them or almost three.
But do you think the i brand for BMW is like legit? Like they're going to keep going with it, or is this just like they're trying out stuff and maybe they'll throw it in a 5 Series, a 7 Series, something like that?
After being on the event, I feel like they are pretty much in for the long haul. I really think they kind of invested. Yeah, they're super serious about it. And I think the i8, even more so than the i3, is going to bring awareness to the sub brand. And because it really does. I mean, we were driving down the street and everybody was stopping to talk to us about this car.
Dynamic looking.
Yeah, I mean, looks are pretty much everything to most people. And when they see it, I mean, their jaws just drop, and they're going to be like, what is that? And you say i8, they're probably going to go look up BMW's i sub brand. So
talk to us about the doors because it is an unusual arrangement.
They are actually A-pillar hinge doors. That's
so
what they
more
call
like
them.
A knife edge.
Right,
door.
And they didn't have it. That's actually a better name than what they had. They said they didn't have a name for it. Lamborghini's got scissor doors.
Right.
AMG or SLS has the gull wing. I called them like pec flex doors because it's like trying to flex your pecs, but I don't think that's going to catch on. But they were
some of us don't know what
way
you mean
more
by
solid and easy to use than scissor doors and
so you didn't have
wings.
trouble getting in and out of it?
Well, I wouldn't say that. It's still a little bit tough to get in, but I'm just saying the actual the door mechanism works really well.
Now, the car's gotten some criticism before we move on to something else for maybe not being a real sporty drive by some other journalists. You obviously don't agree with that.
Oh, yeah. I don't see how you couldn't classify that as a sporty drive.
All right.
I don't know.
So
maybe they were just an electric mode.
So it's a true
in the city,
BMW, basically.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Let's move on now to a couple other sporty cars. We're going to save the Alfa for last. Let's go to the Chevrolet Camaro. Well, actually, that's not, because if we don't give somebody else a chance to talk here, it's going to be the Greg show.
Yeah, I need to get another water here.
Alfa Romeo 4C, Brian Robinson. Okay, hits showrooms this month. They've got like 500 in the launch edition, and then there'll be, I guess, I'm not sure how many more after that. Long-awaited. Even though Alfa's already been selling the 8C here, it's kind of the long-awaited return of Alfa to the U.S. I've sat in it. A lot of us have seen it. What was it like to drive?
Yeah, I was looking forward to driving. I wasn't sure what to expect from what I read. Everyone said it's like a Cayman Fighter type car, but it's not really that at all. It's like a mini Ferrari. It's like the Enzo and the Lotus Exige had a love child. This would be it. It weighs under 2,500 pounds. Mid-engine, it's all carbon fiber tub, all aluminum suspension.
Looks like you can stick your hand out with the door opens and touch the ground, no problem.
Yeah, super bare bones. I mean, there's no nav, there's no backup cam. It's got
are they even options
steering.
though? I mean,
no, it's a real sports car.
Yeah,
that's
get out of
cool.
here with that.
The manual steering.
Excuse me?
It's legit. It's got a tiny 1.7 liter engine. It's mounted mid, right behind your head, and you can hear everything going on at all times in the engine. There's like hardly any sound deadening. A lot of people thought it was cool. To me, it got old real quick. I mean, if I was just going to do track days with it, I would love it. But, we spent a lot of time on the road, too. It got pretty annoying to me. But
talk to us about the steering a little bit, because, I mean, there are a lot of people who have never driven a car with manual steering.
Yeah. Obviously you notice it mostly at like parking lot speeds when you're trying to back into a parking space or something. But once you're rolling, I mean, the thing's so light and it wants to turn by itself almost before you even turn the wheel. You don't even really notice it, especially at track speeds. I mean, it's heavy, but I mean, it's so quick and direct that, I mean, I would have no problem living
Besides the sound, anything you didn't like about it?
Well, it was funny because it looks super tight, but then when you get in, it's fine getting in. Mm-hmm. And in the driver's seat, there's plenty of room. In the passenger seat, however, there's like very little room. They got the carbon fiber tub really cuts in the front, and the dash comes down real low, and there's like no leg room for the passenger. So,
gosh, it sounds like an Italian cars of old.
Yeah, and it makes no, like I say, it's not trying to be a Cayman at all. It's trying to be a legit sports car.
And what do you think about that? Because it is being priced very similar to the Cayman. Do you think that who's going to buy it?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising because I know Alfa's making this big return to the States, and they're going to have 8 models or something in the next 3 years. I think it's kind of odd that they would start with this one. I think they would try to maybe go more mainstream with their first car, but it'll certainly get people excited. I mean, we couldn't go anywhere without people flagging us down, wanting to see it. It looks awesome. It looks almost like a mini 8C, but even flatter and wider.
When I sat in it at the auto show, I felt like I was in a throwback. I used to own a Di Tommaso Pantera many years ago, and it had manual steering. And I mean, I'm looking around this thing and thinking, this is not unlike what that car was. A lot better, I hope, than that car was. But I really felt like I was in a true sports car again. And there's not very many of those left.
Yeah, it's on that vein, it's only a dual clutch transmission, which a lot of people are griping about, no manual, but
these days they're faster.
Yeah, and it's a Ferrari base. Almost all the high tech stuff comes right from Ferrari and Maserati, so it worked great. I thought I wouldn't have a problem living with it, even in auto mode, just tooling around the streets, felt fine. You can get an upgraded muffler free exhaust system, which again just adds more noise inside, but it sounds awesome outside for a 4-cylinder. The thing sounds like a V8 when it's under full throttle pulling away.
Okay, Greg and Patrick, your thoughts on what you've seen of the car so far? Does it intrigue
Questions?
you?
It definitely intrigues me.
Does it intrigue you? I mean, because you have no history with Alfa.
I have no history with Alfa, but from what I've noticed in my couple of years at MotorWeek, people loved the MX-5 Miatas, the FRS and the BRZ. People loved those because they were bare bones, no nonsense sport cars. So this seems in that similar vein, but just with a ton more advanced technology and a lot more engineering put into it, and then obviously a higher price.
And obviously, Greg, once we've pried you out of the i8, what do you think?
I want to drive it. I mean, everything I read about it really excites me. I want to drive something with mechanical power or mechanical steering, something that's super lightweight. And I did have a question though. Normally in these presentations, what were they saying? Expected sales figures? Did they mention any of that?
They said they can make like 17 of them a day or something. Mm-hmm. So you do the math, and that was kind of all they would say.
But there's 500 of the launch edition.
Yeah, which are they're going to be pretty expensive.
Yeah,
they're going to be fully loaded. They're going to have like the track package and all kind of stuff added on. So I'm sure they'll go quick, and I'm sure it'll do well for them.
Which dealerships are they going to?
They're just announced. They have 82 U.S. dealers coming to the U.S.
Alfa
by the end of the
dealerships?
year. Yeah, their current Fiat dealers are going to add Alfa, but then there'll be also some Maserati dealerships and some other standalone dealerships. But yeah, that was the big announcements they had at the event. Not sure I'd want to live with it on a daily basis. I mean, if you're going to use this as your daily driver, then I would definitely go for the Cayman. You get all the creature comforts that you would want. But if you're just looking for a weekend canyon car or a track day car, for sure, this 4C's legit.
So there you have the same basic formula, as you just mentioned, applied to a Camaro. And, of course, everybody that remembers the Z28 remembers that was basically a track car from the day one. So, Greg, you drove it.
I did drive it, and I had a blast driving it. It was better than I expected. I mean, I guess it seems like I go into these events thinking that all these cars are going to suck, but they don't.
At least you go in with a good journalistic attitude. Yeah, that's good.
But they definitely don't. I mean, this thing is pretty ridiculous. Trying to think. Yeah, like we said before, AC is optional. And actually, one of the lead engineers on it, he just bought one. He didn't get AC in it.
Well,
he didn't get the extra speakers.
I'll bet they'll be most valuable if you don't.
He drove it all the way up from Houston to Detroit and was like, yeah, I loved every second of it, which I kind of down. I'm thinking that was probably hot. But no, I mean, it's obviously, you're not going to really notice that much. Also, the carpeting, there's no carpeting in the trunk, so you don't really notice that. But it's just that kind of attention to detail that makes you interested in the car. Bigger things, the LS7, naturally aspirated, 505 horsepower with a K&N cold air intake. I mean,
well, wasn't it the original Z28 basically was built for one reason? That was to beat Mustang. It was a race car basically for the street.
And they've still got the same philosophy. It seems like they really want to beat Mustang here.
Yeah. And we're trying to take a little of the thunder away from the new Mustang.
Yeah, well, do you remember the Cobra R? Well, there's been many Cobra Rs, but the last one had the same, totally stripped out. But I thought they went even farther. I mean, you couldn't even get a radio in it, and they took the rear seat out, which I was surprised they got the rear seat in the Z28.
Yeah, well, they didn't take it out, but I think they made it thinner, and it's like barely. It's essentially just like Velcroed in there.
It's a luggage rack.
Yeah, it really
seemed to
is.
me they could have went a little farther on the.
What do you mean? I mean, they took out the HIDs. You can't even get HIDs.
They're probably way lighter than, way less than regular halogens.
And then the thing that kept pushing was the Pirelli Trofeos up front. They're 305s in the front, which is absolutely huge.
It's meaty.
So I mean, there's tons of grip, and it was cool because I didn't want it to be out of control on the track. Like I wanted to be able to, like I was talking to M3, use that power, and you absolutely could. There's a bunch of different sports settings. The 5th sports setting was my favorite. That lets you get away with the most, and you could whip the tail out if you wanted to, but really wouldn't let you get into too much trouble. But yeah, I mean, I toured that thing all day around the track at Gingerman, and it was just really had a blast.
Does it have like the faux carbon, or not the faux carbon, the faux suede steering wheel and shifter and all that? Like
it still has that, yeah. It has the Recaro seats, which actually I think our 1LE had Recaro seats. Mm-hmm. And they say, because this is actually, the Z28 is a 1LE, and then they just strip everything out.
Right. 1LE.
Yeah, so they didn't start with an SS, they started with a 1LE. And but actually those Recaros were made for the Z28. They just showed up in the 1LE before it.
How much lighter is it? How much do they strip out?
It's 300 pounds lighter than a ZL1, and it's still 3,800 pounds, which isn't light, but I mean, 300 pounds.
That's not a light car, though.
No.
Period. Yeah. Under any circumstances.
Yeah, but it is 300 pounds lighter than the ZL1. I think it beat the ZL1 on pretty much every track. I think it was like Nürburgring.
Yeah, all the magazines are beating every car with it on every track they go to. So.
Yeah.
So it too is something for somebody that just wants to go out and do a little competition or have something very unique. I mean, because obviously if you're looking for pure performance, there's a lot of stuff on the market that probably is a better daily driver, including the new Corvette.
I'm not sure it would be that bad of a daily driver. I mean, how annoying was the noise factor inside? It couldn't be that bad.
I didn't drive it on the street. I had a helmet on the whole time when I was driving on the track, so I couldn't really give you an honest
I heard it was pretty
one.
difficult under normal conditions to have a conversation.
Yeah, I could see that because they did take some of the sound deadening out too. But I could probably live with it.
You could live with it.
Yeah, I mean.
Gee, what a tough life we have.
Seriously.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. Let's move on now to our lightning round where we have 2 minutes to debate a trending automotive topic. When time's up, you're going to hear this. Thank you, Patrick, the man with the bell. Okay, we often spend – what? What?
I got it.
What? What?
Carry on.
We often spend time talking about the next big thing in transportation, solar panels, parking lots with autonomous cars parking, and whatever else that you come to your mind. Okay, what's the one piece of technology that's becoming available today that you think is overlooked, underrated, and might actually end up being something very much mainstream in the next few years? Who wants to take a stab at that?
I mean, every car is eventually going to be autonomous. I mean, half the cars now have all the systems in place. Whether
Autonomous meaning self-driving.
Well, yeah,
more
to a
or
certain
less.
extent, not letting you hit anything or anyone. More so, I mean, everything's got automatic braking now and warnings, and I think.
Do you like that though? Do you like those? Do you like automatic braking systems?
To me, I don't like all the warnings because I get false warnings all the time. I'm not saying I'm a bad
turn
driver.
those right off.
No, but
lane departure.
Lane
in
departure
particular,
is
I hate
driving
that.
you crazy.
I hate that.
Yeah. Well, and even if you go, we have Acura RLX in right now, and just driving on a road where cars are parked along the side, it constantly triggers a warning that you're going to rear end a car that's parked in the side and you have plenty of room. That really annoys me. But obviously, if it saved my life one day, I'm sure I would love it. So I don't know.
So what do you like though? If you had to pick one, what's your favorite one?
Noisy cars that are made for the track.
like we've
With
been
nothing
talking
at
about.
all.
You like sound deadening.
You know, auto braking, I think, has a place because low-speed rear-end accidents, of course, it probably just gives people another excuse to be texting or talking on their cell phone. But the very first accident I ever had was a low-speed rear-end accident. I probably had over my life several of them. And you're thinking, gee, wouldn't it have been nice? I mean, it was generally because the car in front of me started and then stopped. Wouldn't it be nice to have a system that kind of kept you from being a stupid human trick once in a while? So I can see if those systems become a true automatic stop, not just a slow, that could be something that would be worth it.
Distronic might be for you. Was that in heavy traffic?
You know,
when
I
you
hate
ran it?
Distronic.
You don't like it?
Radar cruise control, I really hate it
I get it.
because
Wow.
Interesting.
I
you're
like
cruising along and all of a sudden the car starts to slow down and you're thinking, why the heck is the car slowing down? I don't like it.
It's impossible in traffic because
Yeah.
people just cut in front of leave
Exactly.
so much space. People cut in front of you, then you back up.
Yeah.
Someone else cuts in front, and you just constantly
Yeah, I guess
losing
that's
space.
I find Distronic just
not
as
a race.
annoying as
Right.
as
It's not a
Everything's
race.
a race.
Yeah, I don't
If you're
know.
driving like cross country and there's you're in the
Nobody
Midwest with no
there.
traffic, then yeah, it's great, but not for daily use.
I don't think we have a consensus.
I don't
here,
even
which is
know if
good.
we answered
I
that
like
question.
blind. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
if
don't
we
think
can come
did,
back,
but
let's
I'll
just come back.
All right,
put
blind
another 2
spot
minutes on
monitoring.
I do like
I
blind
like
spot
blind
monitoring.
spot monitoring.
That's okay.
I'm surprised that it's not more frequent, like in more cars. It just seems like something so simple yet so helpful. And it doesn't seem that complicated. I don't understand why more cars don't offer it yet. It seems slow
I don't
to creep,
either.
it
And
seems
backup
slow to
cameras
creep
are going to
in.
be mandated, so that's one we're going to see more mainstream.
Yeah, backup cameras, I think, are here to stay. And frankly, now over the weekend, I had a rental car, a nice Toyota Camry. It was a rental car, and it was well loaded. And it had no backup camera. And I got in it, and I really felt like this car's not. What's wrong?
Yeah.
You know, he's like, I actually have to use the mirrors properly. And so, unfortunately, we are using backup cameras as an excuse, I guess, not to look in the mirrors. All right, let's move on. Now that we beat that to death.
I could go more on that.
Okay, LaRon has written on our Facebook page a question. That,
We have a Facebook page.
We do.
We do have a
Everyone
Facebook
should check
page.
that out.
Yeah.
And it is
Maybe
a
if you
very
bought a
good
home computer,
Facebook
you would know that we had a Facebook page.
He has to give away his abacus first.
He still writes letters.
Okay, LaRon writes and asks whether we think hybrids have peaked in popularity and is the craze slowing, or will the newest round of hybrid supercars like the LaFerrari and the Porsche 918 and the McLaren P1 propel hybrids even more into the mainstream? Well, okay, we'll start with, who wants to start with this? Hybrids, I think, are here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different variants now, whether you're full hybrid, light hybrid, plug-in hybrid, mild hybrid, auto stop-start hybrid. I mean, they're going to become more and more popular for sure. It's just the engine choice now.
What's coming down the pike with fuel economy regulations for every car and truck out there is going to force manufacturers to be looking at hybrids. I mean, they're going to look at 8-speed transmissions, 3-cylinder vehicles, diesels, all of that. But in the end, having some electrification through some form of hybrid is the absolute only way that this fleet we have vehicles here in this country is going to meet the CAFE rules. Now, if you get a different administration and they get thrown out, that's something else again. But you can already look around at a few products like over at Lincoln and some others where the hybrid powertrain is standard, and I think that's going to increase.
I have a problem with the mild hybrids. I really don't.
I think they're dead.
Understand, like this XV Crosstrek hybrid that we're having now is very mild hybrid. I think it only goes like EV only up to like 10 miles an hour or something like that. And then it just seems like the fuel economy gains are so minimal that why did they put the
It's
extra
almost
effort
like
into it?
it has all the bad things that are associated with a hybrid and like only a few of the good ones.
Right.
Like
You don't get enough.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Like,
You don't
what are
go
doing?
get, I mean, people buy a hybrid, they're expecting a big jump in fuel economy. And I think mild hybrids, especially the ones that GM was building for a while, gave them a bad name. Then you had a few from Mercedes, and they didn't seem to do anything. The XV seems to be like tiptoeing. It's like it's equipped to be a real hybrid, but it doesn't quite have the battery to do it, and the engine's still a little bit large. It's just the standard motor, isn't it?
I think so.
And so you're sort of saying to do a real hybrid, you need to size the internal combustion engine and give it a decent electric motor and battery.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to downsize the engine. I mean, I think Toyota's been
Very
good
successful
with packaging their.
Well, you don't necessarily need like a 2.5 liter. You can get by with a 1.8 or a 1.6 or something like that. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I think plug-in hybrids to me are the most intriguing. I mean, you get the benefits of an electric car, but yet you've got the gas engine when you need it. I think that to me should become more mainstream. I realize it's more expensive to go that route and you need more space for batteries. But
I don't understand that. Let's stop there for a second, because a plug-in hybrid is this, I mean, does it necessarily have to have I guess it has to have somewhat bigger battery or you can't make it justify it. But to me, any hybrid, take a Prius hybrid. I mean, it's I don't understand that why at the end of the day, when maybe you've depleted the battery, you can't plug it in just to rejuvenate that battery so you don't have to be charging it up while you're driving it. I don't get it.
Well, you can get a plug-in Prius hybrid.
Well, yeah, but it has
Why
a
can't
bigger
they all be
battery
that?
and it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot more expensive.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you can't take the basic Prius-style hybrid today or Ford Fusion, whatever you want, and put a plug on it. And because it would have some value of being able to top off the battery when you're at home.
Agreed.
Anyway, but I think hybrids are here to stay, and we're going to see a whole lot more of them as we go forward. But we don't have a whole lot more time. We've pretty much exhausted that on this MotorWeek podcast number 99. And we'll be back soon with our 100th podcast, and a special guest will be joining us, hopefully, on that podcast. But today I want to thank our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, our podcast creator, Bob Mixter, and our podcast producer, sitting right here at the table, the man with the bell, Patrick Lucas.
You guys are welcome.
Thanks,
You're
Patrick.
welcome.
Thanks for everyone that has joined us today. Thanks to our underwriters. We hope you get a chance to watch MotorWeek both on public television and on Velocity. Till next time, I'm John Davis for all of us at MotorWeek. Thanks for listening and watching.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com. rockauto.com, and by Die Hard. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series, each week on your local PBS station.